Okay, let's unpack this. There's this debate, right? It's probably been around as long as people have been lifting things.
Uh-huh. The big one.
Yeah, exactly. To lift heavy or to lift light. What really builds strength and what really builds muscle.
It sounds simple, but it gets complicated fast.
It really does. So today we're doing a deep dive into the science behind it all. Specifically, resistance training loads, low load versus high load, and what it means for, your performance, your physique.
Right. And our mission here is to really dissect a key piece of research. It's a systematic review and meta-analysis from back in 2017
Okay.
by Schoenfeld, Gregic, Ogborn, and Krieger. It was published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research.
A solid source, then.
Oh, definitely. And this isn't just like one study's opinion. It's a meta-analysis, which means they rigorously analyze data from 21 different studies on this topic.
21. Wow.
Yeah. So pulling all that together gives us a much, much more robust picture. It helps us see past maybe quirky findings in one study and get to stronger conclusions based on the collective evidence.
That makes sense. So this deep dive is really for you listening, whether you're an athlete chasing a PB, maybe you're a coach designing programs, or honestly, just someone who wants to understand how to get the most out of every lift.
Absolutely.
And what I find fascinating is how this study really challenges some pretty traditional thinking.
It really does push back on some old assumptions.
So let's start there. The old wisdom, right?
Mm.
For ages, the guidelines, this idea of the RM continuum.
Yeah, the rep max continuum.
Right. It basically suggested you needed loads over, 70% of your one rep max. That was supposed to be essential for maximizing strength and hypertrophy.
That was the prevailing thought. The belief was pretty firmly set. 1 to 5 reps, heavy, that's for strength. Then 6, 12 reps, moderate weight, that's your sweet spot for muscle growth.
And the logic behind that.
Well, the rationale was often based on motor unit recruitment. The idea was that only those heavy loads could force your body to recruit the highest threshold motor units.
Okay, break that down a bit. High threshold motor units.
Think of them as your strongest, most powerful muscle fiber bundles. They only really kick in when the demand is super high, like lifting something really heavy.
Gotcha. The emergency power fibers?
Kind of, yeah. So the thinking went, no heavy load, no recruitment of these critical fibers, therefore you're leaving potential strength and growth gains on the table.
Okay, makes sense from that perspective.
Right.
But this study challenges that, you said.
Well, it tackles this question head on. What if lighter loads could actually recruit that entire motor unit pool too?
Oh.
Some researchers started proposing that training with intensities even as low as, say, 30% of your 1RM could eventually lead to complete motor unit recruitment. But, and this is the crucial part.
Let me guess. Failure.
Exactly. Provided the sets are carried out to momentary muscular failure. Lifting until you simply can't do another rep with good form.
Right. And measuring this recruitment, that's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
You mentioned conflicting studies before.
Very tricky. Things like surface EMG, which measures electrical activity in the muscle, have given us mixed signals. Some studies show lower average electrical activity with low loads, even at failure.
Okay.
But others show similar peak activity compared to high loads. The problem is EMG amplitude isn't just recruitment. Other things affect it, like how fast the nerves are firing.
So it's not a perfect window into what's happening long term.
Precisely. It doesn't necessarily correlate perfectly with the actual gains you see over weeks or months. And that's why longitudinal studies, the ones tracked in this meta-analysis, are so vital. They show the real-world results.
Okay, so let's get into how they did this deep dive. This meta-analysis, you said 21 studies. That's a lot.
Yeah, more than double what previous analyses on this specific topic had looked at. So significantly more statistical power, more confidence in the results.
And they didn't just include any study, right? There were rules.
Oh, absolutely. Very specific criteria. First, it had to be an experiment directly comparing low load, defined as 60% of 1RM or less with high load, so greater than 60%.
Okay, direct comparison.
Crucially, and this is non-negotiable for understanding the findings, all sets and all the included studies had to be performed to momentary muscular failure.
Not just stopping early, really pushing it.
Every single set designed to hit that point. Also, the studies needed methods to actually measure changes, muscle mass estimates, or strength tests like dynamic, isometric, or isokinetic.
Makes sense. Need to see the outcome.
Yep. And they had to last at least 6 weeks, long enough to see real adaptations. Finally, the participants had to be generally healthy, no conditions that would limit their training.
So good quality studies overall.
Definitely. They were rated using the Pedro scale, which is a standard tool for assessing methodological quality in this kind of research, and the included studies were generally rated as good to excellent.
Okay, solid foundation then. Let's unpack the findings. Strength first. For athletes, coaches, that's often the primary focus. What did the science reveal?
Right, let's focus on 1RM strength, your maximum lift for one repetition.
The classic benchmark.
Exactly, and here, the results were pretty clear-cut. Gains in 1RM strength were significantly greater for the high-load training groups compared to the low-load groups.
Ah, so heavy is better for max strength.
For 1RM, yes. Looking at the numbers, the high-load groups averaged about a 35.3% gain in their 1RM.
Pretty impressive.
Very. But the low-load groups, remember they also trained failure, they still saw a substantial gain, about 28.0%.
So light loads still build strength.
Yeah.
Just not quite as much max strength.
Correct. And connecting this to sports performance, it really reinforces the principle of specificity.
Train how you want to perform.
Precisely. If your sport demands lifting maximal weights, think powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, then training with those heavy loads is, well, clearly advantageous. You're practicing the specific skill you need.
Makes perfect sense. Any nuance there, like for beginners versus advanced lifters?
Yeah, there was a suggestion, though the data was a bit limited on this specific point, that heavier loading might become even more important for maximizing 1RM strength as you get more trained and experienced.
Interesting. Okay, what about other kinds of strength, not just the one big lift?
Good question. They looked at isometric strength.
Yeah.
That's like holding a static position, maybe a wall sit, or pausing mid-lift.
What?
Initially, the analysis showed no significant difference. High load groups gained about 22.6%, low load about 20.5%. Pretty similar.
So light or heavy didn't matter much there.
Well, not so fast. When they did a sensitivity analysis, basically checking if one study was having too much influence, they found one study was skewing things a bit. Removing it suggested there was actually a likely, although probably small, benefit for heavier loading for isometric strength too.
So maybe a slight edge for heavy there as well, just less pronounced than for 1RM.
That seems to be the case. It's also worth mentioning they didn't have enough data in this meta-analysis to draw solid conclusions about things like isokinetic strength or specific changes in lean body mass or muscle fiber size.
Okay, good to know the limits. But now,
Mm-hmm.
the part that really turns heads, right? Muscle growth, hypertrophy.
Yes. This is where it gets really interesting and perhaps counterintuitive for many.
Lay it on us. What did they find for just building muscle?
The big reveal for muscle hypertrophy? Measures of muscle growth were similar between the high load and the low load conditions.
Wait, similar? Not better with heavy?
Statistically similar. The mean percentage gains were really close, about 8.3% for the high load groups and 7.0% for the low load groups.
Wow, that really does challenge the old hypertrophy range idea.
Absolutely. But again, we have to hammer this home. This similarity holds true only when the training is carried out to momentary muscular failure.
Right. That failure point is the great equalizer, it seems.
It appears so, at least for hypertrophy. And this raises a really important question for anyone training. If your main goal is simply muscle growth, you actually have significant flexibility in the weights you use.
So you're not locked into that 6-12 rep range.
Not if you're willing to push lighter weights to failure. Interestingly, there was an initial statistical trend that slightly favored heavy loads for growth. But when they removed a couple of influential studies in that sensitivity analysis, that trend disappeared, confirming the overall similarity.
That is a huge takeaway.
Yeah.
Massive implications for programming.
Absolutely. It opens up a lot of possibilities.
So let's connect the dots. What does this all mean practically for the person listening, the athlete, the coach, someone wanting to change their body comp?
Okay, let's break it down. If your number one goal is maximal strength in a specific lift, like that powerlifting squat 1RM we talked about,
Heavy is still king.
heavy is still king. Principle of specificity wins out there. Also, high-load training is generally more time efficient for pure strength gains.
Why is that?
Because hitting failure with light loads usually means doing a lot more reps, maybe more sets. It just takes longer to accumulate that fatigue compared to a few heavy reps.
Makes sense. More grind involved with the lighter stuff.
Can be, yeah. But if your primary goal is muscle hypertrophy, building size,
You have options.
loads of options. Heavy, light, both are effective, provided you take those sets to momentary muscular failure.
So much flexibility there. Think about managing injuries, Or just boredom.
Exactly. Maybe your joints are feeling beat up from heavy lifting. You could switch to lighter loads, higher reps, push to failure, and still effectively stimulate growth. Or just vary the stimulus to keep things fresh, manage fatigue. It gives you and your coach more tools.
That's huge. Now, you mentioned something earlier about emerging ideas, going even deeper.
Right. This wasn't definitively concluded in this meta-analysis because they didn't have enough specific fiber type data across the studies, but there's this provocative thought emerging from other research.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's the idea of fiber type specific adaptation. Some newer research hints that heavier loads might preferentially grow the fast twitch, type 2 muscle fibers more.
The power fibers.
Yeah. And lighter loads taken to failure might lead to greater growth in the slow twitch, type I endurance fibers.
Huh. So different loads might target different fiber types, even if overall growth looks similar.
Potentially. It's still a hypothesis needing more direct proof, but it raises a really interesting question for optimizing training, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Could training across a spectrum of reps, sometimes heavy, sometimes light, both to failure, actually be the best way to maximize total muscle growth by hitting both fiber types optimally?
Like periodizing not just load, but maybe targeting fiber types.
Perhaps. It suggests a potential benefit to incorporating both heavy and light failure training if the goal is maximizing overall muscle development and maybe creating a more well-rounded athletic profile, something researchers are definitely looking into more now.
That's a fascinating layer to add. What about just sticking to the programs? Did people manage okay with both styles?
Yeah, that was another practical point. The study noted high adherence rates in the included trials, over 87% for both high-load and low-load groups. And safety profiles look similar too.
So people can stick with either approach, and both seem relatively safe when done properly.
Seems so. But, and it's the final big caveat, remember, these findings hinge on training to momentary muscular failure.
Can't emphasize that enough.
We absolutely cannot assume you get the same results, especially the similar hypertrophy, if you're stopping sets well short of failure. That level of effort seems critical. More research is definitely needed on different levels of effort and fatigue.
Okay, let's wrap this up then. Quick summary.
All right, big takeaway. Chasing max strength in specific lifts. Heavy loads win thanks to specificity.
But if you're primarily after muscle growth, hypertrophy.
You've got amazing flexibility. Heavy, light, both work equally well as long as you push those sets to true momentary failure.
So for you, the listener, the sports performance enthusiast, this means you can really tailor your training, not just to your goal 1RM versus muscle size, but also to how your body feels, managing recovery, maybe working around aches and pains.
It empowers smarter training. You can use light loads to deload joints while still driving growth, or go heavy when you're feeling strong and chasing strength peaks. More tools in the toolbox.
And that final thought to leave people chewing on.
Could strategically combining both high and low load training, maybe in different phases or even within the same week, be the ultimate strategy? Could that unlock your body's full potential by stimulating all your muscle fiber types for both maximal strength and maximal growth?
Something to seriously consider as you plan your next training block. Definitely food for thought. Keep diving deep with us.